First, welcome to the real story. A few months back, in an attack that you likely never heard about before, someone infiltrated Defense Secretary Robert Gates' secure Pentagon computer network and started downloading data. Officials still don't know how much information was compromised. Now, it is frightening. It's frightening enough that our critical networks are vulnerable to attack. The real story is, it is much more frightening once you hear who was reportedly behind the attack. The People's Liberation Army of China. Oh, look who looks so surprised. Are you surprised because everybody in the media keeps trying to tell you, oh, please, they're your friend. China, they're great. Well, it's time for somebody to finally tell you the truth. China is not a friend. They're not an ally, and they don't need us. What they are is a growing superpower that is slowly and methodically working to threaten us both militarily and economically. And it is the second part, the economic threat, that I don't think most people even begin to understand. I am no Ben Bernanke. Yeah, true, but I am a thinker. So let me give you a 60-second thinker's version of Economics 101, the class you slept through when you were in school. First, the U.S. has a massive trade deficit. Everybody's saying this is great. I don't think so. It means we import a lot more than we send out. Actually, it's about $58 billion a month more. But who's counting? Before 1980, it was exactly the opposite. We actually exported a lot more than we consumed. That has changed over the last 27 years. Why? The rise of China and their cheap exports that we just can't get enough of. We are addicted to it. Secondly, we have a massive budget deficit, which means our government spends more than it earns, and just like us, it charges the difference on lots of different credit cards, which they call U.S. Treasuries. Normally not a big deal, except instead of the U.S. consumers buying those treasuries and taking on the debt, it's now held by foreign governments who are doing it, yes, China, near the top of the list, and they are doing it for all kinds of great reasons. Now, conventional wisdom holds that none of this is really a big problem because they cancel each other out. China needs us. No. The conventional wisdom is if they stop, if we stop buying their stuff, then their factories go bankrupt, and then they go into a depression. Maybe, maybe not. What if China was able to take their 1 billion people and turn them into consumers? Do they really need us? Would they really need to keep buying and holding our debt? That is, unfortunately, about where my Econ 101 class ends. Let me bring in Peter Schiff, president of Euro-Pacific Capital and author of Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse. Peter, I am just beginning to read your book, and it is fascinating and frightening. And when I saw this story today, I thought, America, China is not afraid of us. And Bush will tell us, Peter, oh, they've got to have, they'll never do anything. They need us. Explain, please, how they don't.
Well, you know, you're right. You know, we are addicted. We're spendaholics, and the Chinese have been the enablers. They've been supplying us with both the products and the savings. But you know, if China just produced their own goods, you see, we've been enjoying the fruits of the Chinese labor. They're keeping prices low for us while their own citizens are going without things. They're artificially suppressing the value of their own currency to keep the goods that they produce unaffordable for their own people. We're benefiting. But when the Chinese finally stop buying all these treasuries and all these mortgage-backed securities, and I think they will, you know, their own currency, the Chinese yuan, is going to go through the roof. And the purchasing power, the living standards of their own citizens, 1 billion people, are suddenly going to find that everything is a lot less expensive. And
when you say they're artificially keeping their currency down, that's what President Bush is asking them to do, is it?
Well, that's what they're saying in public, but I'm sure behind the scenes it's an entirely different story. I mean, I'm sure the last thing that we want the Chinese to do is stop buying our dollars and stop buying our treasuries. I mean, why would we want that? Why would an incumbent politician want to force higher consumer prices and higher interest rates on American citizens? He wouldn't. But certainly the Chinese are not doing us any favors, because the longer we dig ourselves into this hole, the more difficult it's going to be to get out.
Okay, why is everybody telling us that China is not a problem, and yet the World Economic Forum just met and they said the biggest threat to America is China, and the biggest threat to China is America?
No, China is not a problem. We're the problem. It's Americans that are consuming without producing. We're the ones that aren't saving. We're the ones that are buying all this stuff. You know, China's not the problem. I mean, temporarily they're the solution. They're keeping us from suffering.
But the other side side is saying that we're intellectual exporters. We come up with the ideas for the rest of the world.
Yeah, but see, that's all a bunch of nonsense, because if we really did that, if we really could export enough information-based stuff to pay for all the goods, the real goods that we import, we would have a trade, balance. Where's all the stuff that we're exporting? Where's all the intellectual capital? We're not selling it. The world isn't buying it. That's the problem. That's why we have this $60 billion a month trade deficit.
How bad does it get if they stop carrying our debt?
Well, they're going to. So it's just a question of when. And I think the fact that, they're holding all this subprime and mortgage debt and they're not going to get paid back, they realize that they've lent us more than we can repay. I think within the next year or two, it's going to be over. And what's going to happen then is America is going to have to live within its means. We're only going to be able to borrow money if we have it saved. We're only going to be able to consume what we produce.
Peter, I thank you very much, and we will have you on again. In fact, I'd love to do a special on the economy just with you for a few nights. All right. Coming up next, I've been telling you...